Just imagine you're leaving for work and you forgot how to tie your shoes and you're in a rush. What would you do? There's someone around, you may ask, "Hey, how do I tie my shoes again?" Or you may pull out your smartphone, type into Google, YouTube, or even ask Siri, "Hey, how do I tie my shoes again?" And almost instantaneously, you see a video, an article regarding how to tie shoes. A couple minutes later, you have freshly tied shoes. Congratulations! You just completed some micro learning. But micro learning, what really is micro learning? Why or why not should it be utilized? Well, micro learning is defined as the form of instructional delivery that presents small, focused learning units designed to meet specific learning outcomes in a short time frame. You might have heard them as bite-sized learning, nano learning, just-in-time learning, performance support learning, or space boosters. Microlearning can range from a few seconds to 15 minutes. It really focuses on that on-demand skills, training, and accessibility, especially through digital platforms. Thinking about smartphones, for example, many individuals probably have some microlearning tools on their phones currently, knowing or unknowingly. For example, if you're learning a foreign language or another language, you may have Duolingo on your phone. If you need a refresher on math or science, you may have Khan Academy on your phone. There is a whole host of microlearning materials out there that we knowingly and unknowingly have access to. By extension, YouTube could be considered a database full of microlearnings. And guess what? I'm being super meta, and this itself is a microlearning. Doesn't that sound great though? On demand, when you want it, when you need it. Amazing even. Why not just switch everything over to these accessible, small learning bits? Is there anything microlearnings can't do, or any place that we can't utilize microlearnings? Well, before going into the benefits and the cons, let's talk about macrolearning, or at least that umbrella of macrolearning. Microlearning is just a part of that. There are three other parts of macrolearning. We have mesolearning, incremental learning, and then finally we have deep learning. Each one has their own role as well as their own pieces of the pie that need to be utilized. So let's start off with mesolearning. What is mesolearning? Mesolearning focuses on combining several micro skill sets into a coherent learning time efficient experience. They often last 30 minutes to several hours to provide time for that skill chain to develop, as well as the application of that skill chain towards real world problems. Incremental learning, on the other hand, is the gradual accumulation of knowledge or skill through sequence learning that is built upon prior understanding. It emphasizes long term knowledge retention through progressive skill development. And then finally, we have deep learning. This is the formal, sustained task instruction designed to build transferable cognitive development to problem solving through structured practice and feedback loops. Now that those four micro, meso, incremental, and deep learning have been described, let's move into the more practical pieces. What are examples of these four? So, first, thinking about micro learning. Granted, I gave my example at the beginning, but just another way to think about it is if you had a problem, let's say with car maintenance, you need to learn how to change a tire. You could go on YouTube, you could Google on your phone, hey, how to change a tire. and boom, it's there. Meso learning, by extension, could be a library regarding car maintenance. So it's not just the changing the tire video, it could be also how to pump your gas, how to change your oil, a whole litany of different things in that same relevant space that a learner could access at any point in time and go into whatever order they want. And this is where incremental comes into play. It leans on the Meso's idea of a library, but instead of it being a library where you can just access whichever you want, it sequences it. So the first module being very foundational. So in the car example, thinking about the dashboard, all the different things on the dashboard, the symbols, when what lights mean. So when the development of module 2, 3, 4, and whatever, they can focus in on specific parts that were understood in the dashboard. So module 2 could be about tires. So if the tire symbol pops up, what does the person, the learner, need to know about that tire light and what to do with it? Lastly, we have deep learning. And deep learning would be like a certification for engine mechanics. So the mechanic, the learner, whomever, gets a deep understanding of the engine, what makes up the engine, how does the engine work, but also thinking about the problems with it conceptually, what it's supposed to do, and how does it relate to the other portions of the vehicle. So if something were to happen with that engine or other parts, they know what they're looking for and how to share that with others so they can understand what's going on. Another way to think about it is it's an iceberg with micro being at the very top and deep learning being at the very bottom. All of them are part of an iceberg. They don't necessarily stand alone. But I'm going to return back to the start of all this. Micro learning, the answer to everything. And granted, it does have some awesome strengths. One, in its availability, its on demand usage and being very focused. At the same time, it has other options, such as it's very shareable across things like social media. If I see a video that I feel that is very informative, I can send it to friends, coworkers, and they can share things with me. And additionally, think about organizations. It could be cost effective, switching everything to micro learnings, right? With increased performance outcomes and learner motivation. You could use micro learnings for everything, right? Well, hopefully you've gotten the idea that it's not necessarily the end all be all. But there are some drawbacks to microlearning. First being that microlearnings are less effective with complex problem solving skill sets. That is where you see incremental and deep learning really shine. Furthermore, microlearnings can also be fragmented, and they can hinder the application of linked skills. So where Meso wants to develop a skill chain, microlearnings don't necessarily. The same with deep learning as well as incremental. And so that's where you can see another pitfall. The last few really are tied together, but microlearning truly is designed to be supported by other learning, as well as being integrated into a broader learning strategy versus being a standalone learning structure. Realistically, microlearnings are just another learning tool for instructional designers to consider to enhance and support the other models and tools out there. In this case, the other three learning umbrellas. And organizations should be cautious that this isn't the answer to everything, even though it does have great benefits. So instead of trying to take existing content and move it into a micro learning space, they really should try to interweave micro learning, just like all the other incremental, meso, as well as deep want to be interwoven within each other to support each other. A way to think about it is in a spectrum, micro being on one end and deep learning being on the other. It's not necessarily a one way street. You're going to move between whichever works for not only your performance goals, but also your learning objectives and what that looks like for you. In conclusion, microlearning is not the answer to everything. As much as it does give accessibility on demand, has its benefits, it is once again just another tool that we can utilize for the betterment of not only the learner, but also our content. With that, I'd like to thank you for your time and letting me talk to you about microlearning. It may not be the answer to everything, but it's an answer for something.